What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to talk about Destiny 2, and specifically some of the stuff we don't know about Destiny 2, and why I personally find that to be pretty exciting. I'm also going to talk about some stuff that concerns me a little bit, but on the most part, this is what some of you would probably describe as a hype video, but it's Destiny 2, man. This channel is about Destiny 2. We can be realistic about our impressions of the game, but we also deserve the opportunity to be excited about this game, right? So I wanted to talk about this because with Destiny 2, there is simply a lot that we don't know. We've heard about the vast story campaign, new worlds, the new gear, and the changes to systems. Everything we know is super awesome, and I feel like on the most part, the community is very excited for the game, but we're kind of in this awesome position where Bungie know that they have to give veteran players enough information about what's different in the game and why it's going to be a better experience than Destiny 1, or why they propose that it's going to be a better experience, and that's why we know as much as we do. At the same time though, because Bungie have learned from the first game and the expansions, this time around there is also a lot which we don't know about Destiny 2 in terms of the stuff that's hidden away, and that is even more exciting, because when we had the Taken King or Rise of Iron, we already knew how the game played, and so sure, they would tell us a bit about gameplay changes, but they also spoiled so much about the content because that's all they really had to sell us on. With Rise of Iron in particular, we pretty much knew about all of the artifacts before launch, and this was a brand new feature for the game that showed us a lot of the gear that we would find and gave us fairly in-depth exposure of the weekly patrol quests. They even revealed way more about the raid than they normally would. You know, we had video inside of the raid, not like what we've seen with Destiny 2, you know, we saw the Death Zamboni in some kind of detail, they even referred to it. I'm not simply complaining here, I'm not strictly blaming Bungie either, I'm just pointing out how different it is this time around. So the stuff we don't know about, well, honestly, that's most of the game right now. A huge component that I think they've concealed very well is the kind of open world stuff, or exploration stuff. I always say open world, I don't mean that. Exploration stuff. We have very little idea of what these spaces will actually feel like when they are populated with activities and enemies. We have been teased a huge amount by this stuff though. The IGN reveal for Nessus was definitely revealing in terms of what it's going to look like, but we saw objectives and a couple of activities. Again though, it doesn't really spoil the immersion that we'll have the first time we actually go into that location, you know, the first time we enter the European Dead Zone. How insanely awesome is that going to be, arriving in that space for the first time, finding strange groups of enemies, characters or quests in the world, and that constant feeling that there could be something you've missed, you know, like behind every corner, through every doorway. I'm incredibly happy that we've barely seen these spaces, and what we have already seen of Nessus won't be the first thing that we see when we get into the game. You know, that's a great point that Deej made about the Destiny 1 beta. When the game actually dropped, if you'd played through the beta, you'd have to play the first quarter of the full game before you saw anything new, any new locations, you know, new missions. And sure, we saw Homecoming pretty early on, but other than that, we're in for some pretty big surprises, so that is pretty awesome. Now, when we bring other content into the mix, such as strikes, patrols, and quests, it's an interesting one because we'll have to play the majority of the campaign before we can access a lot of that stuff, and it's going to be almost a reveal in itself, isn't it? At a certain point, everything will be updated, and we'll literally see all of these new activities for the first time, and that's better than any gameplay coming out of the reveal event with like one strike, you know? This is a huge positive for the game, for us players to actually have some exciting major new things to learn and discover for ourselves over time. Of course, there is also story, which is on the most part a huge unknown, and again this time around we already know there are some characters in the world, we know some of the awesome lore from Destiny 1, but in the new game it's just like bam, we get to discover and experience the story, which has been so relatively unspoiled so far. Of course, we are assuming that Bungie have really built the incredible campaign that we think they have, or that we hope they have. I personally am pretty confident and excited about the story. Deej recently commented on a Reddit post about the talk that Luke Smith is doing at PAX in September, and he justifies the fact that we won't necessarily get any news from this, but it's also a good summary of kind of Bungie's standpoint on revealing content for Destiny 2. So he's talking about the upcoming PAX panel, and he says, "I'd recommend that you go to this as a viewer to learn more about the person that has led Bungie in development of Destiny 2. Luke has been a very strong voice of reason in making sure you still have surprises to enjoy when you actually play the game. If you don't get more information about the player experience, it's not because he doesn't like you, it's because this keynote discussion is supposed to be about how gamers like you and me blaze a trail on which they end up leading an industry and where they can pursue their wildest dreams. Luke believes that the best way to learn about a game is to play it, and we're all eager for more information. I'm eager for you to know what I know, but I agree with Luke. I'm glad that Destiny 2 will have the capacity to surprise you. It surprised me just last night, and we don't want to deprive you of that feeling." So I think that is something worth mentioning. Bungie have said that there is way more to this game than what we've seen. They've even hidden various gameplay elements like subclass trees, or at least not allowed us to see them in game. They've hidden much of the director and what we're going to see in social spaces, and that leads me on to a very serious component, which is the endgame. There is so little that we know about the endgame right now, which is both exciting, but it's also a huge task for Bungie to get right. I hope that it's something they've really rounded out already, but they've given us some of the components, nightfalls. We know that there will be reputation with vendors, treasure maps, and kind of weekly events, flashpoints, and a weekly ritual for PvP stuff. The raid is a complete unknown right now, which is a good thing, and we know that it's going to be there, but we don't know exactly how it will present itself. What will the flow for this new game really be like? And that's the interesting question. There are also things like variety and character building over time, which we are very slim on details on really, and I guess we really have to wait and see how our time breaks down in the new game. I'm confident that Bungie can create that carrot on a stick element that was kind of present in Destiny 1, and really it can be fine-tuned. There really has to be stuff to chase, which works cohesively across the game. They want us to be playing multiple activities, and I think that's what we want as well. We need a reason to continue playing beyond the campaign. Something which is really interesting while we're on this subject is that we've learned there will be exotic drops during the campaign, and we're going to be getting way more powerful with appealing gear while we progress through the story. I personally think this is a good thing. It would be nice if we could be in a place where we can get stuff earlier on. I'm not saying give it away, I'd like there to be puzzles and challenge around that content. The issue though is, how does the game remain interesting beyond that point? Will there be exotic gear and progressions which is more appealing in its own right once we've kind of completed the campaign side of things? I seriously hope there will, because to me that's a really big issue, but it is still very exciting. I think it's going to be really thrilling coming to terms with how we're going to return to this world over and over, and I'm happy to see more of a blend or transition between the story and the end game. We've also heard very little about time gating, but we can certainly expect to see some mysteries that unlock at a certain time, missions which become available, exotic quests and all of that kind of stuff. When I say time gating though, that possibly isn't the best term. What I'm trying to say is stuff that unlocks at a certain time, not necessarily stuff that's in a window of time. I think Bungie will definitely have some of that stuff in store, like the No Time to Explain or Black Spindle quests. To me, things like that, including, Outbreak Prime, the quest for that, have represented some of the most exciting times I have ever had in Destiny, and some of the most active times for the community, when there's this buzz that happens around something that's occurring at the time. It's really, really cool. We don't know anything about that stuff right now, but it is going to be awesome when that stuff happens, and I'm confident that we will see some of that stuff. Most of this team worked on the Taken King as well, and that was kind of a big development in the Taken King, which didn't really bring itself forward to Rise of Iron how we hoped it would, so hopefully in Destiny 2 it'll be kind of packed with that content. I feel like we should talk about PvP here. We do have something Bungie referred to as Call to Arms, which is the kind of weekly set of rituals for PvP content, or kind of an event in its own right. Other than that, we know about some of the game modes, we know roughly how PvP plays, but there are some really huge things to look forward to again, in the form of things like Iron Banner and Trials of Osiris, or the supposed Trials of the Nine. I really hope that if we do see any trailers or reveals for this stuff, that it this pretty minimal, because how awesome would it be for them to say, hey, Iron Banner comes next week, and you walk up to that new vendor, possibly a brand new character, and see all of this gear, you know, for the first time. It's kind of the same thing with Trials. If there's a new social space for Trials or whatever, when you really stop and think about it, a lot of Destiny 2 is a mystery, and that's just an awesome place to be. No given weapon trailer or sandbox update between the beta and the final build or whatever can really excite me more than that stuff right now, you know, the stuff that we don't know. And that's not me saying that that other stuff isn't important by any means. I feel like Bungie have really done us a good service though in keeping the reveals minimal. You know, we've had massive teases, sure, we've had enough to excite us, but on the most part, I really believe that we're going to have the most exciting launch to date as a community. We're going to discover things for ourselves, we're going to discover things as a community, and we get to be excited again. Those are just my thoughts about it though, guys. Like I said, you may call it purely a hype video, and to a degree it kind of is, but I think we deserve to be excited about this game, you know? We also deserve to have our reservations and concerns, and believe me, I do have those. I would like to hear your thoughts though in the comments section. Are you happy with what Bungie have shown us so far? What are the things that excite you the most? Let's try and keep it constructive and civil in the comments. I look forward to seeing what you guys are thinking. For now though, that about sums up this video. If you did enjoy it, leave a like rating below. It really helps me out on the channel, guys. If you're new around here and you want to see a lot more Destiny 2 content, then feel free to hit that subscribe button. But for now, whatever you do, have an awesome day.